as we look at First News. Fair, accurate, you get the damn truth. Police have removed some barricades and began dismantling a pro-Hamas demonstration on the UCLA campus. Law enforcement actions comes as police spent hours threatening the arrest over loudspeakers. Sound of flashbangs were heard this morning. They detained a handful of people on campus. Hundreds had gathered there from who knows where, not just the college. By the way, how much is a bullhorn? I noticed yesterday that a lot of the protesters at these colleges, these kids, they all have bullhorns. I don't know if they use some of their student loan money to buy the bullhorns, but I bet they're not that cheap. And you know, when they've left the campus, you know what these protesters are doing, Mark? They're not taking their tents with them. Now, if I would have bought a $700, $800, $1,000 tent, I would have taken my tent.
At the end of every camping trip, that's coming home.
Mark, they're not taking their tents either.
You can get a bullhorn for $23.
Well, there you go. I'm sure that's why. In the meantime, student protests continue. We're at a boiling point in the nation. President Joe Biden, keep in mind, folks, this is an AP story now. President Joe Biden has said nothing publicly on this Jewish hate, anti-Semitic behavior from these little Democrats, or condemned this for over a week now. In fact, April the 22nd was the last time he made any comment. He's letting the White House be his spokesperson while he, for some reason, scampered off to Delaware on Tuesday. The Biden administration, though, is considering moving Palestinians and Hamas people from Palestine to the United States who want to leave the war-torn region. That's right. The White House is evaluating some proposals to fly them in here to the U.S. to set up camp here. Give them housing, food, clothing, whatever they need to get them out of that war-torn region. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, others in the region, they have refused to take the Hamas-supporting Palestinians into their country. Ukrainian soldiers, in the meantime, said they're worried their fortifications aren't being built quickly enough. Russian forces continue to advance, killing citizens, also causing mass exodus of Ukrainians into other countries, and yet no word from anyone here in the U.S. about the Ukrainian people, about the war that's gone on for over 2 years now, how we've spent over $100 billion funding that war effort. Nobody's calling cut funding to the Ukraine. There's no call from a ceasefire either from Joe Biden or Antony Blinken. The only ones are the people who are fighting terrorists so they don't kill us. They want a ceasefire there. Yesterday, Donald Trump returned to the campaign trail, called the judge presiding over his non-disclosure agreement ethics trial a crook a day after being held in contempt. The order bars him from making public statements about anything. You're not even allowed to talk, according to this crooked-ass judge, who is a donor to the Biden campaign. His daughter actually works for the Biden campaign. He already fined him $9,000. Said he'll send him to jail if he'll keep it up. That's going to be a tough sell to the Secret Service and prisons, but we'll see. The only human being ever in history in America to have to undergo 4 trials, 4 different locations, all at the same time. Death toll from that collapsed highway in China is now 48. Searchers still digging. They said 3 other people were unidentified. They're doing DNA testing. It's not clear what caused it, but 23 vehicles fell down a steep slope, caught fire. Construction cranes were used to lift out the mutilated vehicles and search for bodies. Wisconsin's Attorney General Josh Kaul said police shot and killed a student outside of a middle school after getting a report he was there with a weapon. No one else was hurt. The first law enforcement briefing on the incident that sent children fleeing amid the gunshots. Mount Orab had previously said an active shooter who never got inside was neutralized outside of the middle school building. They didn't say how many officers fired. They didn't say whether the student fired a weapon yet or not. They are still investigating, getting all the footage. Police still remained on the scene. On the medical front, millions of Americans who have used the new obesity drugs that are out there, like Wegovy and others, to lose weight and improve health, are wondering what would happen if they stopped taking them. Experts said the medications are designed and they're tested to be taken indefinitely, actually, if you want to treat the disease of obesity. Some people said they are experimenting with stretching out their doses intermittently. Doctors warn that symptoms typically come back stronger for more food cravings, hunger, and weight gain sometimes. sometimes if you stop them, but everybody is different. One study published in a journal, Obesity, found that 40% of patients who used it were still taking it a year later because still wanting to lose more and more weight each year. Scientists said there's a new form of Mpox that's been detected in a mining town in the Congo that will spread easily among people. It's the biggest Mpox outbreak, 4,500 infections, 300 deaths from Mpox. The new form has milder lesions that they've picked up now, makes the disease trickier to diagnose. Something else to worry about. World markets are wobbling today after U.S. stocks were swinging back and forth to finish mixed. The Federal Reserve emphasized yesterday that inflation is still stubbornly high, but they don't plan to cut interest rates until they have greater confidence that we're out of this big inflation boost. They're going to keep their key rate at 5.3%. That is a 20-year high, as several hotter than expected reports have recently undercut their belief that inflation was steadily easing. Expected, hotter than expected. Yeah, from the Biden administration. They kept telling it, oh, it's going down, down, down. But as we've seen the last 3 months, inflation is going up, up, up. Jerome Powell said inflation has shown a lack of progress to get to our 2% objective. And he goes, we're just going to have to keep an eye on it, but no moves yet. Yesterday, the S&P fell 0.3%. Yesterday, the Dow was up a few points, 0.2%. NASDAQ was also down. Crude oil ended 3 days of decline with an increase of 45 cents, but oil is now below $80 a barrel at $79.45. DoorDash reported higher than expected revenue in the first quarter. Strong growth in grocery orders helped make up for a slowing restaurant demand. Yes, folks, people don't even want to go and get their own groceries anymore.
Right.
They just call up and have somebody else do it for them and have DoorDash bring it. The company's shares fell more than 15%. DoorDash said its net loss narrowed to $23 million in the first quarter. They did beat some sales forecasts January through March, but the company's total orders were up 21%. There were 620 million orders in the quarter January through March. A federal appeals court yesterday rejected a long-running lawsuit brought on by young Oregon climate activists who argued the government's role in climate change is violating their constitutional rights. Constitutional rights were not established when we knew climate change. And the court previously ordered the case dismissed, saying the job of determining that should fall on the politicians and not the judges. Montana man who pleaded guilty, leaving a voicemail threatening to kill John Tester and his family, got 2.5 years in prison. Anthony James Cross was sentenced Wednesday, pleaded guilty to making threats. Another charge alleged he threatened to kill President Joe Biden. That was dismissed. Prosecutors said the threats were made in April. Tester's office did not comment yesterday on the sentencing of Smith. Coming up on Friday, the Democrats will get together in a primary debate, the second congressional debate, and the Montana Farmers Union will be putting that one on. Participants include candidates Ming Cabrera, John Driscoll, Kevin Ham, and Steve Held. They will be having that at the C.M. Russell High School. And what do you do when you retire as president? Well, they do different things. Walt Disney World is going to host a little art show. Dozens of portraits of service members and veterans from George W. Bush. He's going to loan 60 color portraits that he has been doing. They're paintings of service members and veterans. They'll be displayed at Epcot's Pavilion, but that's what he's been doing a lot since he's been retired. He paints, and he paints portraits of veterans and their families. And so they're probably going to auction those off and have them on display down there at Epcot. I'm not going to be doing any painting. If I paint, it's going to be the living room.
Or a barn or something.
Yeah.
Okay, got some suspensions and fines handed out from our little fight in baseball yesterday. 3 Milwaukee Brewers, including manager Pat Murphy and Tampa Bay Rays outfielder Jose Siri, received suspensions from their role that led to the bench clearing incident in the 8th inning. Brewers starting pitcher Freddie Peralta got a 5-game suspension for intentionally throwing at Searing during the top of the 6th inning. And Siri received a 3-game suspension that was later reduced to 2 games, while Murphy will miss 2 games as a result of Peralta's actions, in addition to his inappropriate conduct towards umpires. And I was watching a couple of sports shows yesterday. One of the guys said something really good. It says, that's a baseball fight. They didn't wait for the people to come out of the dugouts. They said, you want some? You got some right here. And more on that guy who got rid of the bees at the Diamondbacks game. As he walked out they let him throw out the first pitch. And as he was walking out, the crowd was chanting, MVP, MVP.
Oh, my gosh. Not too warm today, 48 degrees. That's it. And it's going to feel even colder than that today, folks, because it's going to be windy. So just that time of year, 54 tomorrow. Will be nice over the weekend. And then next week, we cool back off down into the 50s. And hopefully we can keep getting some rain. It's a time of year when we have to get that ground juiced up a little. 34 in Billings right now, 646. That's what's happening. Snowing in Grass Range. Gotta love May here in Montana.